Hello, folks, and welcome back to another Mid-Ulster Amateur Radio Club Tuesday night lecture. We've had a bit of a break, and now we're back into the full swing of things, and we've another great list of speakers lined up over the next few weeks. If you're joining us on YouTube, do feel free to like and hit the subscribe button, and we have plenty of other of our videos, our previous lectures that you can look through. And they can be found on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/MUARC Media. Tonight we are joined by Dick Pasoe, Golf 0 Bravo Papa Sierra. And I don't know if anyone noticed the RSGB media that came out just after the AGM. Dick actually won the Don Cameron G4 STT Memorial Trophy, and I just wanted to mention a wee bit that came along with it, that you've been flying the QRP flag for many years and has been a part of the G-QRP Convention organising team at Rochdale and the virtual convention in 2020, of course. You've written numerous books on QRP and has been a regular in the amateur radio press, Practical Wireless and RadCom and other amateur radio magazines. As one of the founders of the Kanga UK, you run a very successful QRP kit business, and you're also the past president and current board member of the QRP Amateur Radio Club International and the current secretary of the G-QRP Club. So, Dick, we're really great and privileged to have you here with us this evening, and we can't wait to hear what you've got to say to us there. So, really, it's completely over to you there. I'll pass the floor over to you, Dick.
Well, thanks very much, Dave. You just stolen probably about 50% of my talk this evening, but let's make a start here. And hopefully you can see the screen. If not, can you share it, please, Dave?
We can see you at the moment.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah. Well, we can just see you. We can't see any share screen or anything yet.
Let's see.
There we go now. Yeah.
That should be it. Okay.
Yeah, that's great.
Right, first a little bit about myself. I know Dave stole a lot of my thunder, but I was absolutely delighted to get the G4 STT Memorial Trophy. It was from the RSGB. That was another highlight of my career, and you'll see that I got recognised by the Americans 24 years before the Brits found me. But there we go. As Dave said, quite a long history in QRP and also writing for various magazines, as you can see, over the years. I'm going to be talking a little bit about the history of QRP, something about the QRP rigs that have been available, where they've come from, a little bit about building, and a little bit of other bits and pieces to do with my checkered past over the years. So if we talk really about the QRP clubs that we know of, there are dozens and dozens of QRP clubs scattered around the world at the moment. But basically the very first one that we know of started in 1949, and that was the QRP Society. And it was started by a guy called John Whitehead. He was only a shortwave listener, but he decided he wanted to set up this club, and it actually worked very, very well, but not for a great length of time. George, of course, started the G-QRP Club in '74. He had a group of friends who he met regularly on the bands, and in Shortwave magazine, he put a little note out one day, anybody interested in starting a club, please contact him. I joined in 1985, I think it was, and I got the awful membership number of 2559. Now, if you're a QRP operator, send in your membership number on the key. Everyone thought I was giving a single report, but Eventually I gave up and didn't bother sending the membership number. QRP ARCI is the ARCI stands for the Amateur Radio Club International. This was founded in '78 as a 100-watt club, but eventually, much later in the 80s, was actually they brought the power levels down to what we now accept as QRP levels. The shortwave listener John unfortunately got promoted at work in 1955, and he'd been busy doing the magazine, contacting members and doing a huge amount of work for the QRP Research Society. This is a copy of their magazine. I was given a pile of these some decades ago, and when I was doing more research into the history of QRP. It was printed on a little Gestetner. Anybody remember the Gestetners that you wound by hand and pumping ink through the little holes? But it worked, and he mailed them out right across the UK, and it was a great sadness really when we found out that he'd given up. But of course, George carried the beacon onwards and upwards. This is a picture you will very, very rarely see of George wearing a tie. George, the vicar, of course, a very great friend of mine. I've travelled the world with George. We've shared holidays. And one of the things we don't brag about too much, but I've shared a double bed with him on more than one occasion. We arrived down in Friedrichshafen to go to the convention or the rally down there. And the house or the bed and breakfast we'd booked, typical German, they only had a double bed, but we were safe. We had a big duvet between the two of us just to be absolutely safe. This picture was taken in about probably about 25 or so years ago at the Yeovil Convention. I remember it well. We had a great time down there as well. Club magazine, of course, many of you will have seen that. Lately, we've actually managed to bring it out in full colour on the front page, and that all goes down to Tech Swan, G1TEX, who you may remember was one of the guys behind Practical Wireless, who did a lot of their artwork. He's done a great job. If ever you wonder what the word SPRAT stands for, there it is, Small Powered Radio Amateur Transmissions, and it's been mainstay of our hobby for many, many years. ARCI, this is the magazine that comes out. It's called the Quarterly because it appears, surprisingly, every 3 months. And ARCI, of course, based in the USA, about 18,000 members around the world. And around about 15 years ago, I was honoured to be, that was about 18 years ago, to be elected as Vice President, and about 2 years later to be elevated to President, which I held that post for 7 years. And we did a lot of changes to the way the ARCI was run, and the membership expanded exponentially. A great time, a really great time. I was spending a lot of time over in America, going to the Dayton Convention, and we eventually started what was known as the 4 Days in May. And this is a gathering of QRPers around the world. We started in a downtown hotel in Dayton and graduated out to other bigger hotels where they had much more space available to us. Both at the 4 Days in May and at Rishworth, we had build-a-thons. Here you can see some people learning how to put together a circuit on the printed circuit board, and a couple in the background. I'm sure you can see them here, and oh, you can't see those. So 2 guys in the background helping out, and this was really successful. We got a lot of people back into building, which was really, really good. And of course, we had the talks in Rochdale. They went on in the vicarage, and when we got to Rishworth, we managed to take over a classroom in the laboratory and use that for our lectures. Here's the 4 Days in May lecture. You can see about 250 people attended these. And during my time as president, I was quite often had to stand up there at the lectern and welcome the speakers in one by one. During the banquet, which we had, about 300 would turn up for that. I had great delight in shocking the Americans But I had great delight. I walked up to the lectern with a glass of wine in my hand, and me being full of fun at times, I asked all the people attending the banquet to stand and raise their glasses. And please raise your glasses and toast Her Majesty the Queen. So I got 300 Americans to toast the Queen. And I took a bit of stick over that. But rather than get them to toast President Bush, who was president at the time, because 50% would cheer and 50% would howl in rage, I decided to just toast America, which went down extremely well. So some of the highlights of my fun and games. One other time I was waiting to go into the banquet and I got grabbed and pulled round the corridor to go and find my agent who was working over there with me. And his wife was standing beside him in full Scottish regalia with the bagpipes on her arm. And I was toasted into the banquet by Tina walking in front of me playing her bagpipes. Quite a day. So let's talk a bit about QRP itself now. But what is QRP? We all know, of course, the Q code and where it came from. It was designed to shorten the long phrases that were needed. And rather than saying to anybody, I'm using low power, by the way, I would send the word or the letters QRP. If I added a question mark, are you using low power? For those using low power and claiming awards, if you're using CW or data, we classify the power output as a maximum of 5 watts. For SSB or similar, 10 watts output. But remember, this is at the rig, not at the antenna. So you have to make sure that every little smidgen of your power reaches the antenna where possible. It's if you try and claim awards with more power than that, you're just cheating. And we don't check, but who are you cheating? Looking at power levels, if you listen to a lot of American stations, they'll be running 1.5 or 1.5 kilowatts, chatting to their neighbour down the road. If they were back off from their S9 signal down their mate and drop the power to 100 watts, they'd only go down a couple of S points. This is assuming one S point is 6 dB. Instead of 100 watts and being received at S7, if they quarter that down to 25 watts, then they drop down by 1 S point on the rig, WS6. If they drop down again a quarter of that to say a nominal S5 or 6, there'll still only be an S5 signal. Going down to 1.25, 1.5 watts, they're down to S4. This is assuming the 1 S point is 6 dB. But you can see there that why run the 1.5 kilowatts and not drop down to 100 just for 2 S points? It does prove a good point. Talk a little bit about rigs and fun and games I've had with them. Top left, we got the Heathkit HW7, which many of you may know. An early rig started in around about 1972, 3-band QRP rig, and it was VFO and also crystal controlled. Just covered 3 bands, 80, 20 and 15 meters, about 3 watts 8. HW8 came in a bit later, 1976, expanded right through to 1983. Solid state, 4 bands, and worked quite well. I've owned all of these rigs at one time or another. The HW9 came out in 84 and lasted till 91. It full bands, 10 through to 80, and again I had fun and games with this because although it's a very popular rig, they had a multitude of accessories for this, from the power supply to the band additions you could put in, SWR bridge, all sorts. And walking around the Dagenham Convention one time, I went over there for about 20 years on the trot. Walking around the Convention one time, from my utter amazement, there was a Heathkit stand there. So of course I had to go across and see what they were up to. And it turned out they had 6 HW9s for sale and a load of band modules and other bits and pieces, power supplies, etc. And I said, well, how much do you want? And they gave me a price for each individual item. So I probably put my credit card on the desk in front of them and they said, oh, well, what exactly did you want? I just quietly said, all of it. I cleaned them out. I bought every single one of these HW9s, all the band modules, the power supplies, the SWR bridges, all sorts. And that evening, took them back to the hotel and shared out some of them to other friends of mine around America who took some home. And when we checked, there wasn't 6 HW9s, there were 7. I brought some back to the UK. I brought all the electronics back, and all the metalwork came back by ship. It was the cheapest way to do it. And I kept mine for a while, and several of my friends ended up, and I didn't make any money out of it. It was a way of making sure that all of these HW9s went to good homes, and they certainly did. I was quite pleased with that. My wife queried the expenditure on my credit card, mind you, and I had to explain that quite quickly. Here we have some more modern ones, not so modern. Index Laboratories QRP Plus on the top left there. Nice little rig, quite cumbersome. It was a box section, about 8 inches deep front to back. You will all know the MFJ series. Martin F. Dew used to come along to our 4 Days in May event a lot, and I got to know Martin quite well. Lovely guy, little Chinese guy, does extremely well. Tentec, the Tentec Scout. Yes, I had another one of these as well. A weird radio, where you see the 7, that unit would unplug, and you would plug in the 14, the 20-meter band, and you could only change bands by pulling out and putting in the plugs. Didn't last awfully long, and very fiddly to use. The 2 bottom ones are the Argonaut 509 and 515. Very nice radios, but often needed an awful lot of work to keep them going. And the one on the right, the 515, I didn't have the 509, but the 515 I had, and the string driving the little indicator kept on breaking, but quite nice. You all know the Ellicraft rigs. The K2, there's a story behind that. I was at the Dagenham Convention one year when they first appeared, and Wayne Burdick, N6KR, who designed this radio, had a booth very close to the QRP booths, and he had one of these rigs in his hand. Rumours had it at the time that that particular box was empty. He was actually selling these on his reputation as a designer of QRP rigs. Prolific designer, extremely well known and well respected for his design work. He eventually palled up with Roger, and lo and behold, they sold, if not hundreds, thousands of these KW2s, so K2s. The KX3 underneath, I had one of those on a trip to Australia some years ago. I didn't like it. I found it very fiddly. Again, they're very, very popular. But there you go. Not to everyone's cup of tea. The 2 on the right are the K3 and the K4. I've played with the K3 at a friend's house up in Michigan. Beautiful radio, beautiful to work, but out of my price range, I'm afraid. But there we are. Ellicraft have gone from strength to strength, and there are strong rumours some of the big guys, Yaesu and ICOM, have tried to buy them out, and they've refused. They're doing really well. I'm sure you all are familiar with the 1R transmitter. This one is George's. He built this. All on a 1-inch square printed circuit board. Just 11 components. And you can see them on the board there. I got one of these returned to me some years ago with a real nasty letter complaining bitterly. I bought the 1R transmitter. I didn't expect it to be anything like this. Why is the 1R on a 2-inch square board? Somebody had actually copied the layout on the PCB and made their own boards. The only trouble was, in the Sprat magazine, it was 2 inches square, not 1 inch square. And I wrote him a nice letter, and he stopped selling them. So that worked. Here's the circuit diagram. You can see the oscillator on the left-hand side, and the switching and the PA. Extremely simple design, with just 11 components. I sold hundreds and hundreds of these over the years. And another great little rig from George Burt, GN30XX. Another one of George's transmitters, the OXO. Not quite as simple as the Oneer, but sold out again in hundreds. And I was very lucky because although these were given to the G-QRP Club, I had a relationship with George that I was allowed to supply them at a reduced rate to all club members. So I did very well out of them, and so did the club. So that was really good. Modern rigs available now. Hans Summer, G0UPL, a prolific designer. The CQX was a single band, well, you can read it. Fantastic little rig. He's actually upgraded it now into the CQX Plus. I've built 2 or 3 of these. They're great little rigs. And he's even bought one out now that's the mini version, which, oh, it's great fun. It's only about 2.5 by 2.5 inches and really fun to build, believe me. But they work extremely well, and he's literally sold thousands of these around the world. I couldn't do a QRP talk without mentioning Altoids tins. They are extremely popular. People have built all sorts into these tins, and here's one of mine. The tins come in all shapes and sizes, and amazingly enough, they're made by Cullen and Bowser here in the UK. And everywhere you go in the States, they're sold everywhere. Garages, shops, everywhere. Here's one that I built, one of Rex's kits. Rex Harper is a QRP kit supplier over in the States. He's well known for the tuna tin kits that he supplies, and you can see the tuna tins in his hands, and they're great fun to build. Prolific designer and builder, and also a really great guy. He's done several talks at the QRP Convention, and yeah, another nice guy. Here's one of mine, the Rockmite. I built this some years ago, and I've since built 2 or 3 others. If you go on eBay, you can actually, if you put in Rockmite, you can see several Chinese people selling these now for silly money. I don't know, £10, £12. You can get the whole kit, so some of these are only £3 or £4. But the key behind it is another little story. Walking around the flea market in Dayton one year, I spotted this key on somebody's table that was selling, but he was in full haggle mode with a guy. The seller was adamant he wanted $100 for it, and the guy who wanted to buy it wouldn't go above $80. And they were having a not quite a slanging match, but quite lively discussion. So I just walked up there and said, "Excuse me," to the guy haggling. I said, "Excuse me, do you mind just a minute?" So I picked the key up and passed the seller $100 and walked away. And I was being sworn at by the guy doing the haggling. I said, I was willing to pay the 100 because I've got a beautiful key. This is really sweet, Brown Brothers key. And if you ever see one, grab it. They're beautiful. I can't talk about building kits without a little bit of display. This is a very old photograph of the time when I was running Kanga products, but very little has changed in my desktop when I'm building. Top left, a nice magnifying glass that you need. Bottom and a slightly different one, I've got other little eyeglasses that I use, like the one that fits into the eye socket itself. The solder station is quite old now, I've still got it on the shelf here. It's done service for about 40 years. I've upgraded now by buying one of the £40 ones off eBay that works extremely well. Solder sucker, of course, fine tip pliers, side cutters, the grips on the top, the solder holder there. I bought this at a flea market somewhere, and you can actually buy these now from RS for about £80. But mine of the fiver was ideal. Every time I show this picture, people are like, "Why the hammer?" That's for when everything goes wrong. Some friends. I got an invitation in 2006 to go over to America, over to Russia. And the invitation came from the Russian QRP Club and Oleg Borodin, The president of the QRP Club invited me over, and I was met at the airport with a van with 3 people sat in this van. There was Oleg, a guy called Stan, and a younger guy called Andy. And we started chatting. We had a 250-kilometre drive down to the Ugla, called Ugra, where we were camping in the forest. And it turned out that Andy, the young man, was a policeman. I thought he was there to make sure that I didn't do anything silly. No, he was there to make sure that nothing happened to me. He was there to look after me and the guy that was with me from Hawaii, and we had great fun there. This is my QSL card, and it's just outside the shack that we had. So there was a rig just inside, a K2 in there from one of the Russian operators. And I was operating one day and I picked up a guy in Scotland. We had a little rag chew for a few minutes. And just as we were about to sign, he said, "Oh, Dick, I really must compliment you on your English. Your English is superb. Where did you learn your English?" I said, "In school near Folkestone in Kent." And he went quiet for a few seconds, when he suddenly realised that where I came from and what my home call was. But it was great fun. During my time there camping in the forest, this guy operating his 100 milliwatt rig was my partner for a contest. The idea being that several operators found themselves little hollows in the woods around the campsite, and they had to work each other as many times as possible. So I went across with Andy in his station on his signing board and his little chair, and I said, "Okay, what do you want me to do, Andy?" He said, "Get lost." "What?" He said, "Just go away. I'm doing this on my own." He spoke fluent English, by the way. And so I went away, found a bench and sat down and read my book. 45 minutes later, Oleg comes across with all the others, and he says, "Right, I've got the results here now. And the winner of this competition today is Dick and Andy." So I won the competition, sat there reading my book. I got a lovely t-shirt for doing it. Nice guy. This is the guy that took me back to the airport on my way return to the UK. And driving along the, oops, a bit early, driving along the road, he got pulled over for speeding and got fined the equivalent of about 10 pence. One of the guys in the van was Stan, and this on the left is his daughter, Anna. And I got to know her and her mum and dad very well. And on the right is Nastya. Anna's 13 and Nastya was about 11 at this time. Both followed me around all over the place, and all they wanted to do was practice their English. And that's Nastya's mum in the background there. So we spent a lot of time together. When I left to come home, I told both of these young girls, "If ever you want to come to England, come and stay with us. We'll look after you." And lo and behold, a few years later, Anna came over. She's stayed with us a couple of times now. And I've now been designated her English Darushka, her English grandfather. Nastya came over and stayed with us as well while she was studying in Hamburg, and she was doing her master's degree. Both girls extremely intelligent. They're both lovely girls as well. I'm still in contact with Anna. This is Anna's parents, 2006, Stan and Ludmilla sat there. And 2019, I did a cruise from St. Petersburg down to Moscow, where we met up, went out to dinner together, and also with Anna. And this is her parents just a couple of years ago. Really lovely couple. They've been over to England and been to the QRP Convention, and it just shows you the friends you can make around the world. This, guys, was my station 6 years ago. 70-foot tower, 4-element tri-bander, cobweb antenna up on the top, and I was working the world. Eventually, we decided we were going to move, and it all went. eBay, my friend, everything got sold, moved on, and all things come to an end. I'm now operating from a very modest station, and I wonder if you can see my antennas. This is my current home on a retirement community, gated community. If you look very carefully, at the top, you can just see a little red that picture's where the top of my vertical peeks out above the roof, and my wire antennas are laying on the roof of the antenna. The antenna wires are laying on the roof. Give you an example, I was on 80 meters last night, FT8, and I worked Oman. So it does work, low power, and very, very modest antennas, but they do get out. And the rule of that really comes down to one thing and one thing only: don't give up. I love this little sketch, given to me some years ago by George, and it just shows the frog. Eventually the frog might survive, depends who lasts the longest. Finally, my good friend George, I miss him. My wife and I used to holiday with him and his wife. I've travelled many thousands of miles around the States with George, going to the 4 days in May and the Dayton Convention, Friedrichshafen, even a couple of trips over your side to Ireland, down to Dublin for a couple of meetings there, which we got involved in. I miss my good friend, but it comes to us all. Finally, thank you very much. If you've got any questions, I'll be delighted to answer them.
From Terry G0BPS, absolutely brilliant. Thank you very much, Dick.
And what kind of prices are QRP radios? I mean, what would be the cheapest you could get that would be already built that you could use? I appreciate the ideas to build them yourself, but
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you very clearly. Could you try again?
Yeah, sure.
Turn the volume up. I had it turned down.
Right. I'm just asking what kind of price you would expect to pay for a QRP radio. I appreciate the ideas to build them yourself, but if you're not in a position to do that, you just want to buy one, say off the shelf or whatever, what's the kind of reasonable price that one might pay for that?
Well, like anything, you get what you pay for. My main rig up until a few weeks ago was the IC7100, which I bought second. I paid. I lashed out when I've been saving a lot of money through this lockdown, and I decided I'm going to lash out, and for the first time ever in my life, buy myself a brand new rig. And I went out and bought the IC7300, and I sold my 7100, which went a long way towards the cost of the new one. But having said that, I picked up Sunday, an IC746 for £450. It's a big rig, but it's HF through to 2 meters, and you can turn the power down, you can use whatever you like. A lot of the older rigs, we used to put a negative voltage on the ALC line, just a 9-volt battery and a pot, and that used to be able to wind the power right down to whatever levels you want. eBay is a wonderful resource for rigs. The best thing is to do some investigating, check out first of all what your bank balance is, what you're willing to pay, and then see
what the XYL will allow you to spend.
I saw an advert really for a notice up saying for an extra $10 on the price, we'll give you a receipt showing what you lied your wife to paying.
Very good. Thank you.
Hi Dick, it's William here to I0WMN. Have you worked on with any of the MCHF radios yet?
Most of the rigs I've built have been HF. I don't build anything else. The technology in that is, I just love the really simple stuff.
Right. I was just in relation to the last question there about a modern SDR radio. I would go into a lot of auction sites, and they had one there. They had this two-way radio that talked about it was a handheld or walkie-talkie, and I didn't know much about the box until I spoke to one of our club members there, George, and he said it was an MCHF clone. Now I bought this. I don't know whether you can see it yet or not. I bought this at auction. They're selling on they're selling on eBay for about £300-400. I got this one at auction for 22. I can't get the focus on it here, but
no, because you've got a background filter on.
I'll see if I can move. I tried getting the background off and let you see it.
But there's an awful lot of stuff coming in from China now, and not all of it is bad. There are kits that you can buy there that are very, very simple to build. If you go to QRP Labs, Hans Summers' website, you can buy an HF rig there that's ready built, and they'll be superb. They're single band, but pick a band like 40 meters, 30 meters even, and you can still work the world. And we're not talking a lot of money. We're talking sub £100.
Yeah, well, this one I've worked into Croatia on 3 watts with it.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, so it does its maximum of 15 watt output.
What more do you need?
Can I ask
Yeah, Jeff's got his hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Dick. Thank you very much for the lecture. Very, very informative. I just wanted to know, what's your opinion of the Pixie kits?
Right, depends where you're getting them from. If you're getting them from China, the transistors are really oddball ones. With care, they work, but yeah, I have built one of the Chinese ones, and I tried to find a compatible transistor in my pile, and none of my. I bought a complete kit of parts from China to start with, capacitors, resistors, transistors, the works. The resistors work,
and that's it.
I'm not saying any more.
Ah, well, that'll probably account for the reason why I can't get mine going then. Okay, thanks a lot.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Dick, if I could ask the question, just Philip. If you mentioned earlier you used to own Kanga products or own Kanga products, is that still going, or if it's not, is there some equivalent for it?
I started Kanga products with Ian G3R00 back in '86. I eventually bought him out, and as a fireman at the time, or ex-fireman, I'd always planned to retire at 55. So when I got to 55, I put Kanga up for sale, and it was bought by a guy who put it all in a cardboard box and left it there for 11 years. A guy called Dennis bought it and ran it for another 11 years, and he's now just retired because of ill health, and it's now up for sale. The direction of travel by the latest guy, Dennis, was quite different to us. We were dedicated very, very simple low power kits. Dennis went for more high profile stuff that was microwavable, in microwaves, and other stuff that he was importing. So hopefully Kanga will be back up and running shortly, assuming Dennis sells it and someone takes it over.
Is there alternatives to Kanga? Not trying to, are there other kit manufacturers out there that you would say are okay?
My main person I would recommend more than anything else is Hans at QRP Labs. His prices are extremely reasonable. You can buy a kit of parts for a single band HF rig for I don't know, under £60, and they are superb quality. You add a bit more for a case, and I wish I'd got mine down now, but they're in a, like all things, so you build them, you operate them once or twice, then they go on the shelf. But mine are in a box.
Yeah, well,
there you go.
I just have a pile of these. I have about 50 of these here that I was going to give the Les one time, but I've never met up with them since lockdown. But my mother smokes hand-rolled tobacco, and she was at this stuff for a while. So lovely wee tins with a closable lid. So Les, I don't know if you need 50 of them, but I have them here in a cardboard box for you. Les,
we've got to meet up. I've had 2 jabs.
I've had one. But I do have a cardboard box of about 50 of these tins for you, you know, so they're actually nice size.
You don't have to use a printed circuit board. Everyone assumes everything has to be on a single circuit board. That's not true.
Mm-hmm.
You can actually use bits of tin glued to a bit of wood, and you solder your components following the circuit diagram to your bits of tin as you've glued to the wood, and the bit of tin will act as the ground plane.
Yeah.
It's going to be ugly, but then it's going to be called ugly way of building. You can actually use, say, 1 meg ohm resistors on a piece of printed circuit board to lift the components of your circuit off the board. Then you've still got your earth with the PCB. You can cut your PCB into small pieces and glue them onto pieces of wood. There's a myriad of ways of designing and building stuff. I've done them all, believe me. I was delighted to see Les hold up his QCX. Let everybody have a look at that, Les, because it really is a great fun rig to build. What band you've got it on?
That's 20 meters. Can you hear me?
Lovely. Yeah, fine.
Yeah, 20 meters. Yeah. And I've got about another 10 rigs here. Every mint tin. So
if all fails, go on the QRP web pages. You can pick up some of the books that are for sale. They give loads of designs. Well, you've seen a couple tonight. That you can copy those. You've got them recorded, I understand. Copy that. Build them. Have a go. Just warm up a soldering iron. Get some components. Most of the components used on those two are easily obtainable. If you're a member of the QRP Club, you can get most of them from the QRP shop with Graham Firth, G3MFJ, and all at very, very reasonable prices. So get out there and build something. I like that.
Yeah.
I just go ahead, Les. Sorry, I thought you were finished.
Yeah, no, I'd just like to underline what Dick was saying about Sprat. On the back of Sprat is where you get your components. And they really are cheap. I mean, your transistors are 60 pence or 20 pence. Diodes 10 for 10p. You know, this is the source of really, really cheap, high quality tested components.
And
it's really good.
Can you buy them?
Sprat is brilliant. Yeah, Sprat is brilliant now.
Can you buy them in small numbers? Because a lot of components I've said you always had to buy in bulk.
It's prefer.
No.
Yeah.
Let me jump in there, Les.
Go ahead.
First of all, join the QRP Club.
That's the next thing I'm going to ask you. How does one join?
Well, first and foremost, it's incredible value for money.
Yeah.
If I told you it was £10 a year, would you think that fair?
Yes.
It's not. It's £6 a year. for UK members. For £6 a year, you get 4 of the scrap bags posted to you free. Plus, you can buy the components on the back, and they come in a pack of 10, pack of 5, whatever. But it's incredible value. We don't need to put the prices up because we're selling so many of these components. We buy them in bulk, we sell them at a very cheap price, and that keeps the club going.
Right, that brings me on to my next question, Dick. You might be familiar with what has gone on over here over the years, but over the years, in the last 15 years or so, we've held local conventions now and again, different things like Digicon, HF convention and whatnot. If one was to organise a QRP convention, would we get support from the likes of yourself or other people?
If you're running a QRP convention over there in the
north,
north,
a B&B somewhere.
You would have the likes of myself and some of the others coming over to support you. We tend not to give financial support because we.
Oh, I'm not looking at that. If anything, we'd be paying you.
Yeah, well, it would be a case of some of us would come over and be giving the talks for you, giving you moral support. We would have a stand selling components and other memorabilia from the club.
Right, guys, you've heard it here first. The next convention in Region 8 will be a QRP convention. I'll get on the ball.
Right, as for joining,